Hi, good evening. Okay, welcome to West Covina City Council meeting. Today is February 4th, okay, and right now 7 o'clock at the meeting section. And tonight, invocation will be led by Pastor Samuel Martinez from Amazing Love Ministry and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Shoemaker. All rise, please.
Thank you, Mary. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we gather here this evening, we remember the words of our great American of old, George Washington, who said, "It is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and to humbly implore His protection and favor." We humbly, this evening, implore your protection and favor over our city. Keep our police officers and first responders safe. May our neighborhoods continue safe. May our schools continue to be safe havens. Prosper our businesses, Heavenly Father, and grant wisdom to our mayor and city council, our chief of police, our city manager, city attorney, and all those, Heavenly Father, that work for our city. The Lord bless you and keep you, West Covina. The Lord make His face shine upon you, lift up His countenance upon you, and grant you His shalom peace, nothing missing, nothing broken. God bless America. God shed His grace on thee. And God bless West Covina and shed His grace on us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please have a seat. And Assistant City Clerk or Deputy City Clerk, would you please roll call?
Councilman Castellanos?
Here.
Councilman Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez Viado?
Present.
Mayor Wu?
Here. Do you have anything to call for the closed session?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. Then we move into the presentation. We have a full presentation. I'm going to move. Okay, our children go first. Okay, if the number 1, number 2 don't mind. All right, okay, you don't mind, go. Okay, let the children go first. Okay. Okay. Something very important for us, again and again, our children continue the after-school program, number 1, right? So here tonight I will have in the presentation, okay, I'm sorry, here, okay, West Covina High School dance and drill team. The team has competed the USA Regional Dance Competition on January 25th, 2020, and achieved the following award. And the principal, you want to come up next to me? And the coach? Where's the, oh, yeah, I remember, yeah. How you doing?
Good, and yourself?
Yeah, pretty good, okay. And so the third thing is military competition routine. The first place and qualify for championship division at national. Would you please give them a hand? Good job, ladies. So who is number 1? When you stand up? Here's your champion. Yeah, thank you so much. Congratulations. And the second one is dance drill competition routine, the first place. Yeah. Which one?
Go ahead.
Congratulations. And is JV over here?
Yes.
Okay, have a seat, please. The JV hip-hop competition routine, the second place.
Hip-hop.
Hip-hop. Thank you. And JV pong competition routine, 4th place. Thank you so much and congratulations. I think this is important. Our city with our high school, with all this brilliant kids, and continue the after-school program. They practice, and I saw it so many times. last year and the year before last year, they came to our square, West Covina, I call it, performing art square at the lake. And you guys performed magnificently. Am I right? I was there, right? And I even give you money too, right? How much I gave to you guys last time? 500. And how about year before? I have more money that time? 1,000. This job killing me, so that's why the budget I have to cut down to 500. But this year I will continue to support you guys. So support our children for them to continue to do. And remember, the first night we only have 50 parents show up, but the second evening we got about 200 people, and the last night, Sunday night, we got 1,000 people crowded. Amazing, because you guys become so outstanding. And you want to say something about all this brilliant young lady?
These wonderful young ladies work really, really hard. They're not only on the dance team, but some of them are taking AP classes, they're doing musical, choir. So these young ladies are really, really talented, and I just want to say thank you for all your hard work, and parents, thank you for your support and dedication to this team.
Parent, I remember you. You're the outstanding, the parent booster. Okay, you want to say something?
Yes, so...
And Emmy? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, parents and community members. My name is Alicia Marquez. I am the booster president for the dance drill team, and it has been a pleasure to serve these girls and see them grow. The commitment that the parents have, it starts from the parents showing the girls what they need to do, the commitment to just keep going forward, even when we don't want to get up in the mornings to take them, we do it for them. We are building good traditions within them, not just for school, but for work and college. These are fundamental bases that we need to keep showing them, and them coming back with awards, having a great time, seeing them bonding is what really moves the parents and the team to continue to move forward, and we're so very proud of them. Thank you to the community, to our council, our mayor, who's always been a big support, Dario. You guys have always come out to support our Diva Dance-Off, which we're still expecting you to come back in May to judge, and we just have a great time, and we always welcome you guys. Thank you so much.
And I was there all the time. And are you going to perform again this summertime at our lake square, right? Yes. Hey, you guys show up, I will give sponsorship again. Okay. And let me see how much I have after this job. Okay. So, okay. Hopefully, don't cut again 50%. No. I guarantee at least $500. Okay. And community, please. Okay. Support them. Open up your wallet. Okay. Really to help our children. Okay. $50, $100, $20. All welcome. But at least. Okay. And we have the shop local after school program. I think I talked to the school district and say, hey, we get this money. Please help out all the children, all different kind of program. And now, any of parents want to say something? Otherwise, I'm going to quickly give them one by one have certificate. So, by the way, it's televised. You're on TV. You're on YouTube forever. Okay. So you want to start in code people?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Mama, okay? If you guys two line up, straight line.
Bring your plaque, your awards. Yay, Ryan. That's my daughter. So somebody take pictures. Sarah Melendez. Yaretsi Meza. Esme Cordova. Hatomi Ng. Oh, Amy, get in the picture, young lady. Kaylee Farias. And Melanie Celaya, but she's not here, so we will make sure to give it to her. Dance drill.
Come line up again.
Angelina Loftus. Esme Cordova. We'll keep going. Evelyn Rodriguez. Hitomi Ing.
Yes.
Kaylee Farias. Liz Zelaya. Melanie Zelaya. We'll save that one for later. She's not here. Michelle Hu. Ryan Alvarez. Yes, you remember they won first place for that.
I went to the Hilton.
Yes. Sandy Hernandez. You remember that, huh?
Absolute memory.
Sarah Melendez. Yaretsi Mesa. Many of the girls, we have 4 routines, and many of the girls are in multiple routines. Some of them are on all 4, so it just continues to show dedication on their end.
For
Angelina Loftus, this is for hip hop.
hip hop.
Bianca Cambreros. Eden Carascosa, but she's not here, so we'll save it for her. Esme Cordova.
You have 3.
Yeah. Heidi Coders. Did I say that correctly? Coders. Hitomi Ing.
Yeah, you have 3 too. Good achievement.
Jalissa Paniagua. She's not here. Kayla Tejada. Yay. Liz Zelaya. Macaulay Valles. Ryan Alvarez. Sandy Hernandez, UCLA.
UCLA. Yeah, USC. Andy?
Sarah Melendez. Yaretsi Mesa. One more group.
Last one.
Last one. This is our big one. And girls, half of you guys stand on the other side when we call your name so we can take a picture after. Yep. Angelina Loftus. Amaya, and this is for JV Palm. Amaya Castillo. She's not here. Eden is not here. Emily Escobedo. Esme Cordova. Evelyn Rodriguez. Is she not here? She isn't here? Oh, there she is. She's right here.
Okay.
Hitomi Ing.
got 4 too.
Jalissa's not here. Okay. Kaylee Farias. Carla Castro. Liz Zelaya. She's coming. Melanie Zelaya. And we have Melanie. So she's here. So she gets, here you go, one more. She gets 2 more. That's her. There you go. Michelle who?
Michelle?
Let me see. Let's keep moving. Ryan Alvarez.
Hey, you have 5.
No, 4. Samantha Ramirez. Yes. Sandy Hernandez.
Sandy.
Sarah Melendez. And last but certainly not least, Yaretsi Meza.
Very good. Can we have a group?
Yes. Let's take a group picture. Take this away from me, Ariel.
Okay. You want to sing? Okay. Council, you want to come and join us after? Thank you, ladies. Good job. Congratulations. And don't forget, I see you soon. Get another first place, okay? Yes. Good job. Okay, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you so much for coming. Congratulations. Good job. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. We are going to the next presentation. We are having a presentation by the Horatio Alger Association State Scholarship Program awarding a scholarship to the Brendan Lam. Brendan, would you please come up? And the principal. Brendan Lam from Edgewood High School. Brendan is one of the 50 students across America who receive a $10,000 scholarship. So you don't need money from me anymore. Good. For the 548 who apply. So it's a great achievement. I want to thank you. And principal, you want to say something? Then you can say something. Okay.
I would love to. So.
Mike, you want to come up to school?
Testing. Okay, wonderful. Brandon Lam is a senior at our school at Edgewood High School. He's an International Baccalaureate Diploma Program student who's earning currently a 4.83 grade point average. He hopes to attend UC San Diego to major in psychology. He is also currently moving on to state for his speech for the Elks Lodge Scholarship at the moment as well. So we want to send him off with a lot of luck to him. And he's representing Edgewood High School and West Covina Unified School District, as well as the city of West Covina, very well. Thank you.
Mike wants to say something?
Well, I'd just like to say Brandon, which I've known for a while now. He's president of the Interact. He's a Rotarian, so he's an Interact. So he's been president, I think, a couple of years now. So we worked collaboratively with him when I was a Rotarian. He's an Interact. So I've got to know him. What a bright, intelligent young man he is. I'm so proud of him. You've done a wonderful job. Thank you, Brandon. I know you're going to make us proud. So just keep me updated what you're doing, and I will let everyone else know about you.
Brandon, want to say something? You want to thank your parents?
Yeah. I'd like to thank my parents for always supporting me and pushing me to do my best in school. Academics were always a priority when I was young, and it's really paid off now. I'd really like to say thank you to the West Covina Unified School District as well, and especially the Edgewood administration and staff, because without their support, without their guidance, I wouldn't be able to achieve such great things as I do today.
Good job. See, now even he has a 4.8 and he can talk. So that's he very good. Before I present the certificate to you, but I want to say one thing. I want to thank the school, school board and the principal to come tonight. And I think this is what it's about. The city want to basically recognize the outstanding of our youngsters to come over here to be recognized. And we want to use this presentation always. If you have any student in the future, they have anything, achievement, you're welcome to come to our city council. We will present the certificate. We want to encourage our kids, West Covina kids. They are doing the outstanding thing. We want to recognize them, and they can be the YouTube. They can look at themselves. I think they will be proud. But thank you so much to bring Brandon over here and continue to do the good job, and we're proud of you. And here we present West Covina and our council. We have a certificate for you. If I can find it. Okay, hold on. Not like those ladies have 3 or 4. I only have one for you, but this one has my signature, so maybe it was something in some time, in the near future, Thank you, Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Principal. Next one, I want to the water quality. Let me see. Ken? Manny? Of course, Ken. Sorry. Okay. You guys look alike. I would call you Brady. We do. Confused. So you're going to do some presentation regarding the water quality?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's all yours.
Great. Do you want me to use this one or this mic?
You can do this facing them, or you can use this facing us.
I'll face you, and then we've got slides.
Yes, you can use the mic.
Okay, very good. Then I can move around a little bit. First of all, I want to apologize for Valerie Munoz was going to be joining me tonight. Valerie is the city councilwoman from the city of La Puente, and she represents cities without pumping rights. Just for education, on my board, the Water Quality Authority, we have 2 city council members, Jorge Marquez, who represents cities with pumping rights from the city of Covina, and Valerie Munoz represents cities without pumping rights, and West Covina is in the second category. Unfortunately, she came down with the flu, and she felt it would probably not be a good idea to come here tonight, and I fully endorse that. If I could go to the next slide. You know, the Water Quality Authority was established back in 1993, but it's, I think, important to look back at what started the whole movement towards San Gabriel Basin Water Quality Authority. In 1980, 1985, some of you in the crowd and some here may remember the hysteria that was going on in the San Gabriel Valley. Water wells were being shut down all over the valley, and there was a real panic about what we were going to do for water quality here in the San Gabriel Basin. Next slide. This was from 1986 to 89. So for 10 years, there was a number of things the EPA was doing and the state agencies were doing to try and at least get their arms around this issue of water quality in the San Gabriel Basin. Finally, the EPA came out with a report saying there is no agency here in the San Gabriel Valley that has all of the authority to do the things necessary to clean up this basin. And so it was the state legislators in the state of California got together and said, we need to create the Water Quality Authority, and that was when we were established back in 1993. Next. The mission was to coordinate, plan, and implement groundwater quality management programs here in the San Gabriel Basin to remediate groundwater and to prevent future contamination. That was the mission. Here's a list of the goals. The next slide. That were established by the board back in 1983. They were relevant then. They are still relevant today. And you'll see why in just a few minutes. I'm not going to try and go through those in the interest of time. Next slide. This is why it was important. If you look at the cross-section through the San Gabriel Basin, this is what it looks like. There are 3 dams up in the Azusa Canyon. And those 3 dams store water during the winter years and during the wet season, and they release water down into the canyon and then down into the San Gabriel Basin. And despite the fact that you don't see the water, we are actually standing over a lake right now. This lake is about the size of Lake Tahoe, and it's below our feet, and all that water is in between all of that rock and sand and gravel, and it's a tremendous resource for those of us who live in the San Gabriel Valley. Approximately 85% of the water that's served to residents here in the San Gabriel Valley comes from that aquifer. What was happening is, as the pollution was being discovered, that water, as it's pushed down through the aquifer, and it moves, as you know, downhill, and it's moving towards that area where you see the uplift, that's Whittier Narrows, and there's a fault line right through there, and that keeps that water in the San Gabriel Basin, in this bathtub that we call the San Gabriel Basin. And we had a tremendous amount of pollution that was found. And in the early 1990s, the legislators, mainly from the Central Basin, which is the area just below the Whittier Narrows, they were very concerned about the pollution in the San Gabriel Valley getting into the Central Basin. The main San Gabriel Basin serves 1.4 million people with groundwater. The main basin, which is just below the Whittier Narrows, serves 2.3 million people. So they didn't want our problem to become their problem. So the Water Quality Authority was established in order to provide strategies and to get out in front of the groundwater pollution, even in front of where EPA was. Next slide. This is the San Gabriel Basin. Now, the boundaries might be a little awkward for you, but this is the watershed of the San Gabriel and the Rio Hondo River. And the boundaries that you see there are not political, they're geological. And everything outside of those on the south are the Puente Hills, and to the east is the fault lines that lead towards the Pomona Basin, and up above is a fault line that leads to the Raymond Basin. And the water comes through the watershed down the Azusa Canyon, and creates the pollution that we have there. The next, push the button, and you'll see the first area of concern was the Baldwin Park Operable Unit. That center area that has the darkest amount of kind of orange, that is the Baldwin Park Operable Unit, and the pollution that was from the Baldwin Park Operable Unit started up in the Irwindale area, and it stretches for approximately 5 miles all the way down to La Puente. Next, South El Monte is the areas of Rosemead, Alhambra, and South El Monte. Next, El Monte is the area of El Monte and Rosemead. Next, Puente Valley is the city of industry, portions of Hacienda Heights, Roland Heights, and down into Bassett and La Puente. Whittier Narrows is an area right next to where that uplift we showed earlier. There are no responsible parties in that area, but there is pollution there. And next is Area 3, which is in the area of Alhambra. Those are the 6 different operable units established by the EPA. And the Water Quality Authority started in 1993 to clean up those areas, starting with the discovery of volatile organic compounds, or cleansers. So as this basin was starting to mature and industry was moving into this basin, think about it, after World War II, this was a great place to live. Think about all the cities that were established in that period of time, from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Why? Freeways, new schools, cheap land. This was the place to be. And so all of these industries were setting up in the areas. Plus, we were establishing industrial cities, City of Industries, City of Irwindale. All those areas were were areas that were prime for industry. And as they were building things for the Cold War effort, they were cleaning them and were creating this pollution that was going on the ground. At the time, they thought it was just the best management practice. We know today that what they did was wrong. So these operable units were established in the area. Next, Mark. This is probably a good slide to show you that talks about the success of the Water Quality Authority. The blue line is the amount of water that was treated over the last 25 years. Approximately 1.6 million acre-feet of water has been treated. Now that's a great news, because that means that 1.6 million acre-feet of water didn't have to go through the delta and be transported down into Southern California. The red line is the contaminants removed, and that's approximately 91 tons of contaminants have been taken out of the ground and then transported to EPA-approved sites. Next. These are the progress that we are making on the building of facilities to clean up the basin. There are 32 separate facilities around the basin that are used for cleaning up the basin. Our last and final treatment facility for cleaning up is in the Puente Valley Operable Unit, and it's right down near Valley and Stafford. And it's a $40 million facility being paid for by Northrop Grumman. Next. This is probably the best news of all. Who's paying for it? The responsible parties, those people who polluted, are paying 75% of the cost of treatment here in the San Gabriel Valley. Federal government, 12.5, local resources, 9.6, and state, 3.7. The local resources that were being paid are the assessments that are going from the cities to the Water Quality Authority every year. So as you can see, that we've been very successful in being able to get responsible parties to pay for what's been going on here in the San Gabriel Valley. It's been a tremendous success. We've been around for 27 years now, and everybody asks, the first question is, how long is it going to take to clean it up? I can't tell you. It's going to be decades before it's all done. So far, we've spent probably close to $900 million. I'm guessing it's going to take at least $1.5 billion more before it's over, cleaning up this basin. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, Council, have any question? Thank you, Ken. A wonderful presentation. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move into the next presentation. Mr. Jeff Clem. Okay, Jeff Clem is going to present, okay, let me see, about the upcoming election and the process. So maybe you can show us about the new system.
It's actually, sorry about the last minute change. Jeff couldn't be with us tonight, so I'm Philip Rivera, Governmental Legislative Affairs Executive Office. Tonight I am here to talk to you about voting solutions for all people. This is the culmination of a 10-year project we've been working on to revamp the voting system that we currently use, the very aging voting system that we currently use. My goal tonight is to provide you with the information, to provide the citizens of West Covina with the information they need to successfully navigate this system, which is quite simple to use, and to spread the word amongst their friends, family, and relatives. Okay, the new system we're looking at is a 7-component system. You'll see by the end of this that the process from the voter's point of view still remains relatively unchanged. Looking to the lower left, we're moving to an electronic poll book. Now, in the past, we signed in on a paper roster. In 2020, in fact, beginning February 22nd, when we start voting in the primary, we will be signing in on electronic poll books. This is basically like an iPad with specialized software. It does add some security features. For example, I will have real-time tracking of voters within Los Angeles County. I will know immediately if someone votes in West Covina, I will know in Glendora that they already voted. No one can jump around and try and do any shenanigans. We're also moving to a new modern tally system, and there's not too much exciting about the modern tally system. Tally is the term we use when we're talking about counting the ballots. The modern tally system does add one feature, actually adds 2 features. We no longer have to sort the ballots back into precinct order. So post-election, we get hundreds of thousands of ballots back. In the past, we had to sort them into precinct order before we could tally them. Now we could just throw all the ballots on there and tally them on the fly. Another nice piece of that tally system is that, heaven forbid, there's some kind of natural disaster and our warehouse burns down, we will have a digital backup of the election. As it scans every ballot, it will create a digital image of that ballot. We're moving to an option of an interactive sample ballot. Now think of your fast boarding pass when you go to the airport. You enter all your information in the beginning. When you get in, you scan, and you move on your way. We're looking at the same concept here. You could download your sample ballot. You could request to have your sample ballot provided via email. This saves paper. This saves trees. LA County is the largest, most diverse voting jurisdiction in the nation. It takes a lot of paper to run an election. With the interactive sample ballot, you'll be able to pre-mark your choices on your phone or your PC, your choice. Again, this is optional. Once you're done pre-marking your choices, you will receive a QR code. You simply take that QR code into your vote center, scan it on a ballot marking device, and it'll populate your ballot for you. You will then have another chance to make any changes before you print and cast your ballot. In the middle, you see the ballot marking device. Now, in the past, what did we call the devices we worked with? Ballot marking devices, except in the past we used ink and a little Scantron sheet. Now we're using a touch screen and a printer. I want to point out, this is not an electronic voting system. And I'll repeat that for the audience. This is not an electronic voting system. That ballot marking device you're looking at right there is not connected to the internet in any way, shape, or form. It is a standalone device. It simply has information about every precinct in the county on there. It is still a paper-based system. Ultimately, when you're done making your choices, it will print out a paper ballot for your review. Additionally, you will be able to cast that ballot on the same device you voted on. Therefore, once you check in at your vote center and you're handed your ballot, nobody else will touch that ballot until it gets back to Norwalk and we tally it at 8 p.m. when the polls close on election night proper. We've moved to a voting period. During 10 years of focus groups, we asked folks, why did you miss the last election or why did you not vote? Number one answer, I was too busy on that day. That day being Tuesday. We have now, through the Voters' Choice Act, extended the voting period. We now have 11 days to vote, including 2 weekends. As stated previously, voting this year for this primary will start on February 22nd. And I believe we have vote centers right here at West Covina Library. I believe there's one at the plaza right next door. And I believe there's one or two right outside. Right outside is a vote center also. So you will have many opportunities to vote. Speaking of vote centers are not unlike your polling places of the past, but they're much larger. They're located near public transportation, plenty of free parking. Vote centers come in 3 sizes. That's tall, grande, no, small, medium, and large. Small, medium, and large vote centers. Small vote centers will be 10 to 15 devices. Medium will have 25 to 30 devices, and large will have about 50 devices in it. And finally, we've moved to a new vote-by-mail experience, which most folks have already experienced if they are vote-by-mail voters. It's a cleaner, easier-to-understand ballot. It's full-face, human-readable. That's basically fancy talk for we print it on a standard-sized sheet of paper, and human-readable means it's words, not a bunch of Scantron dots. Something I do want to point out, they have changed the law regarding vote-by-mail submission. In the past, to have someone else submit your vote-by-mail, it had to be a relative or a member of your household. In 2020, they've changed the law, says anybody could turn it in for you. That's the law. We administer the election according to the law, but I do want to caution the public. If someone does come around asking to collect your ballot, or you're going to give that ballot to someone else to submit on your behalf, please only surrender it to someone you absolutely know and trust. We've seen many issues come out of other states. LA County has a tradition of hosting clean, transparent elections, and we'd like to keep it that way. At the next slide, we'll take a little video and see how this looks in real time.
Instead of waiting for one day to vote, you are now able
I do want to clarify, in the beginning they said vote near your home, work, or favorite park. I know some of you heard favorite bar because I saw you perk up right away. So it is favorite park. Moving forward, we talked about the vote by mail already, so let's scroll past that. Here's an example of what a vote center layout would look like. Now, I do want to mention, we've also made an investment in mobile vote centers. So we now have a trailer with the ability to take voting out into the field. For example, an assisted living facility where folks may not have much access to transportation. The director there could call us, make an appointment. We have an 11-day period. We have a little flexibility there. How about Wednesday from 8 to noon? We set up in the parking lot, set up in the lobby. The residents there are able to come down and vote. Exciting thing, because of these vote centers, you have the ability to receive your home ballot no matter where you decide to go vote in the entire county. So there are going to be 1,000 locations. Ultimately, by Election Day, there will be 1,000 locations located across LA County, and you have the ability to vote your home ballot at any of those locations. You will not vote provisionally, and you will not miss out on your local contest, which is where we all know our vote is the most powerful. Here's some of the stats we used. Nothing too surprising. Like I said, people were too busy to vote on that day. Where do they want to vote? Public libraries, local elementaries. Kind of stuff we assume, but again, we designed this system, unlike the corporations that have developed voting equipment in the past, we designed this with the voter first. We worried about getting it certified after the fact, but we went to the voters first and decided what they wanted and needed. Here's an example of the interactive sample ballot. Cool scarf is not mandatory. You do not have to wear the cool scarf. And this is our ballot marking device. I'd like to point out in the left-hand shot there, you see a box attached to the back of the ballot marking device. That is the self-contained ballot box. Security seal, actually serial numbered security seal to track chain of custody, full security all the way through. The ballot marking device, we've proven it. We've tested it over 10 years, multiple iterations. We've had mock elections. We have demo sites across the county. And the ballot marking device does seem to be the voting solution for all people. On this video, they're going to show you what it looks like to actually vote on the ballot marking device. It's important to know, even after you have the opportunity to review on the screen, once you've printed your ballot, by law, in case you did make a mistake after print, you could still spoil that ballot. So you could do that up to 3 times. And a catchy logo. And I think we're on the final slide here. Oh, you guys want to see it one more time? Okay, so I started out tonight saying while we've made changes to the way we interact with the ballot, the total process from the voter is still relatively unchanged. As you can see, in the past we went to a poll site. Well, now we're going to a vote center, and the difference is, like as stated, they're larger, located near public transit. Number 2, you check in with the clerk. In the past, we checked in by signing on a paper roster. Now we check in on a much more secure electronic poll book. 3rd, the clerk would hand you your ballot. That remains unchanged. You'll note that even the ballot has accessibility features, such as the top right-hand corner being cut off for those who are visually impaired. 4th, in the past, you would go to the voting booth. We do the same thing now. It's still a ballot marking device in there. 5th, you make your choices. Now we have more opportunity, or we have more options for making those choices. We could use a QR code on the poll pass. We could actually manually select the choices. Finally, we print and cast our ballot. And yes, we will have employees whose job it is to wander around and hand out those I voted stickers. At this time, I would like, here we go. So leading up to 2020, what have we done? To identify the vote centers, we had over 70 community meetings across the county. We asked the community to identify vote centers. We weren't going to sit up in Norwalk and pretend we knew the best places to vote in Lancaster, in West Covina, in Azusa. The community responded with over 4,000 locations. We'll see 1,000 of those this election. We held a mock election September 28th and 29th. Tens of thousands of voters were able to utilize the device. We submitted an election administration plan, which was up for public review, and you can review that on our website. And at this point, we've done over 500, this will be 501. 501 presentations, and we've had 10 demo centers up and operating throughout the county since September, I believe. So since September, we've had demo centers across the county where people could try out the new devices. As stated, full implementation does start this year. There is no going back to the old Inca vote system. That system was decertified at the end of 2019. February, get out the vote time is right now. Please share with friends, family, relatives. Voting starts February 22nd. Just some random stats, like stated, like you guys may not realize it, but you do live in the largest voting jurisdiction in the nation. This is why it's important for LA County to do it right. Regardless of the current election climate, there are always a lot of eyes on LA County when we process the election. In fact, our population here in LA County of the 10 million, it's larger than the state population of 42 out of 50 states. And that would be it. If you want more information, see us on lavote.net, follow our social media, get in touch with us via email even. At this time, I'd like to entertain any questions if there are any.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry, your first name is?
Philip.
Philip. Okay, Philip. Okay, replace of Jeff. Any question, Council? I have a quick question. Sure. I know the city of Beverly Hills, a couple of cities suing this system. Is that
already been dismissed?
Dismissed already?
Dismissed. So they have the ability to appeal, but it doesn't look like they're going to. So
basically, this will be implemented in March already for this election.
This has been certified, and this is the system of choice.
So we really have to let our voters, especially senior citizens, really understand, because you go so fast, even I'm a senior citizen too, okay, so I'm kind of lost too. So hopefully I can make sure.
I do go a little quicker in the interest of time for council, but yes, we have a number of events. We've had demo sites up, and we have a lot of learning videos located on our website too that we can share, and I would ask cities to share on their website. So we'll continue
to educate our voters to understand how to vote.
Absolutely. In addition to the standard cadre of clerks that we have every location, based on the size of the vote center, we've hired additional folks whose job it is to simply meander about through the ballot marking devices and look for people who may be consternated, or proactively ask folks if they need help or assistance.
Got it. So you have a help to make sure they can
and voters should know that they do have the right to take someone in the voting booth with them. As long as it's not their boss or their union rep, they could take someone in to assist
to help them to go through all this.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Finally, I do want to make the citizens aware that a new law has passed, and that's the reverse ballot order. Since the state consolidated election, told municipalities to consolidate with the county, Anthony Portantino has put forth a bill that reverses the ballot order. We didn't. The local electeds were worried about being at the bottom end of a very long ballot, such as a presidential ballot. So now you're going to see your local contest, your local council seats, any local measures. You will progress on to state seats and measures, and then finally up to the federal contests.
My understanding is the controversial is the page only go forward. So if people in next page, maybe it's not fair to the people in the second page.
And what we've seen statistically is that that's not the case. Recently, we piloted this in municipal elections last November. In Long Beach, there was a candidate who was listed dead last on the second page. However, he's the one that won the seat. Two of the folks listed on the first page actually came in second to last and last. My team has been out there, like I said, since before September. We've seen more people use this device than probably anybody else in the county, and the issues brought up with Beverly Hills is something that we simply did not see. During the mock election, we did see some folks who noted that the more button looked the same as everything else on the screen, but you can see by the video we provided today, because we did create that system in-house for the voters, we were able to agilely respond to those voters, and the more button is now larger, in color, and pulsates to draw attention.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Okay, next one, we go to oral communication. If you want to address to council, please provide a yellow card to our deputy city clerk. And if you don't want to address to council, but you want our assistant city clerk to read for you, please provide the orange one. Okay, and how many speakers we have?
At this point, we have 5 speakers and 1 opposition that will be read into the record.
Okay, can we have first one, please?
First speaker is Ms. Kathy Clark, followed by Jerry Patras, and then Marilyn Maxon Lewis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Kathy Clark. And I am on the boards of the Tenants Foundation and the Historical Society of West Covina. And I'm here tonight because we want to just state that we oppose the consideration that might come up of naming Maxon Street, Glendora Avenue to Maxon Avenue, mainly because it's going to cause a hardship, financial hardship for a lot of the business owners and property owners, because there's marketing, the businesses, permits, banking, all kinds of things that go along in changing the business, as you all know. But anyway, we would like you to consider keeping the name of Glendora Avenue and referring to it as Old Town West Covina, or Old Town Glendora. But Old Town. Yeah. And it's not that we want to dishonor Mr. Maxim at all. We have a big bronze statue in the museum for him. We've done banquets for him. We have a lot of history of the Maxim era in the museum. But the board just felt that it wasn't necessary to change the street. And it would cost the city buku bucks to maps and everything. So that's it. Thank you for your consideration, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Kathy. Next one, please.
Good evening. Honoring a truly notable person, I think, is a very nice gesture. My employer used to honor, and still does, my former employer, notable faculty members and staff and community people. But they did so in different ways, naming a building, a garden, a library, a stadium, a department wing or something. I worked at East LA College when an unincorporated area of Los Angeles was annexed onto Monterey Park. I was assigned to another college when the street name Brooklyn Avenue was changed to honor Cesar Chavez. I've been assigned to different colleges when just the phone system was upgrade caused the phone number to change. When changes such as those I just identified are considered from a business operations perspective, each of the changes was extremely costly to the college because vendors, contractors, government officials, and most importantly, the students and the public had to be notified. Letterhead, business cards, and countless documents and forms had to be updated. It's not an overnight, cheap process. Despite each college's best efforts, each change caused confusion and for the public. My father was a small businessman in Oxnard, and when that city came up with different types of changes, it impacted his business and his wallet and his pocketbook. It also caused confusion for his customers and his contractors and his vendors. Please consider honoring the first mayor without impacting business or the public as renaming a street will do. Instead of changing the name of the street, please consider naming the council chamber, or perhaps even City Hall, in honor of the first mayor. It wouldn't be as big of an impact, and it would still a negative impact on business, but it would honor the gentleman. Thank you.
Following Ms. Maxon Lewis, we'll have Sherry Barrelon and Mr. William Elliott.
Hi there.
Go ahead.
My name is Marilyn Lewis, and I am the granddaughter of Benjamin Franklin Maxon. I wanted to thank you for the council members and mayor for allowing me to speak. The proposed name change from Glendora Avenue to Maxon would be honoring our first mayor, Benjamin Franklin Maxon. I wanted to share some little history of West Covina. Ben Maxon established the walnut industry, which became the economic structure of the farmers of the West Covina's community up until World War II. Ben organized the West Covina Improvement Association and developed roads and flood control. Ben Maxon was instrumental in forming the city's ban to block the city of Covina from developing a sewer on the west side of the city. This is when the community realized that Ben had leadership qualities, and the city nominated him mayor. The city was established, if you know, in 1923. Ben gave land to the building the first school, which was called Irwindale, later Sunset. Ben kept the school functioning for years until the district was established. The first library was built on that site. Ben served the first board of education for West Covina. His family, Mary, my grandmother, held the first church services on their lawn before the Presbyterian church was built. I think Ben Maxon reasoned to tend to the industry that would form the sound financial future for the community, to tend to the needs of the brand new community, to tend to the education that would guide our children, to tend to the children who would grow up believing in the future their families had made. For these reasons, I support the proposal to rename the Glendora Avenue to Maxon Avenue. Thank you for listening, and thank you for helping.
Thank you so much. We're so proud of you. Okay. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Sherry Barrelon.
Okay. I'm also against changing the name. Maxim is fine, but the hardest part of the Historical Society was our history. West Covina trashes our history. We get rid of it. We're celebrating our 97th birthday this month, okay? That street has been named, and we only have one official book, history book of West Covina. That street was named in 1932. It does not need to be renamed now. Just the businesses, and I walked the entire street today, and I went into every business that applied, and you will be getting a lot of emails of people that could not come tonight, because those who could not come to stand up are going to be emailing you. They've got, like she says, we've got letterheads, envelopes, businesses, you've got vendors, you've got billing, and you've got contracts. Just the colony alone, there's 450 units there. Every unit says Glendora Avenue. Every contract for the colony will have to be rewritten to be a legal document. But I do have two solutions for you. Like I said, I walked the entire street today. You've got 67 businesses on the East Valley side. You've got 16 businesses on the theater side. That's 84 businesses that will be affected financially with this change, which is not necessary. But if you go down further, you've got what's called Lakes Drive. That Lakes Drive is between the colony and the theater. There are no businesses there, and there are no residents there. If you change that name, it affects nothing but a street sign. The next section down, you've got two parking that go between the theater and the parking structure. That street, which is 4 lanes, has no name at all. There's no signs there. Why can't that be Maxim Avenue? Or change the lakes, because you already have the Lakes Drive off of Vincent that goes all the way in front of the theater. So there's 2 streets there that you can name the Maxim Theater with absolutely no cost effective to businesses, homes, or properties at all. Okay.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, next, please.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Bill Elliott, and I didn't come to speak on what this bureaucrat was talking about the voting system, but I didn't hear one word from him about voter fraud and how the county is going to prevent voter fraud and unauthorized people casting votes, illegal aliens. I noticed he was using the term, what was it? A new voting system for all people. Huh. What a travesty. What a travesty. And this guy, he's polished, gave a nice presentation, but he left a lot out. And I'd really like to, well, I won't tell you what I'd like to do. What I did come here to talk to you about tonight, I want to just briefly touch on the renaming of Glendora Avenue Maxon. You know, up in Hacienda Heights, there's a park it was called Otterbein Park for years, and they renamed it after a convicted felon that was on a county board of supervisors named Pete Shabaram, and that name should be torn off that park. And I'm not trying to disparage the Maxon name. They absolutely have a place in West Covina history. But you know, I counted 18 names on the memorial tonight, on the Veterans Memorial. Don't you think if you give your life for your country, maybe they should be in front of the Maxons? There's also 3 names on the West Covina Police Memorial. And I know we have they look like street signs that memorialize the loss of those officers, but I would much rather see Frederick Ham Drive or Officer J.W. Jackson Boulevard or Kenneth Reed Avenue.
We have a Reed Avenue on the Cortez.
Great. We should continue that theme. I don't really care for demagoguery, naming stuff after people just because they were something. So time is limited, so I got to move on. I just want to also say that tomorrow, February 5th, we should make it a holiday in Los Angeles County, because a dirty, filthy, stinking, rotten criminal is going to federal prison tomorrow. Disgraced, scumbag, convicted felon Leroy Baca is doing the perp walk tomorrow, and I couldn't be happier. This guy has spent the last 3 years post-conviction at his house. Mayor, if you got convicted of a felony, you would be in prison pending your appeal. All of us, any person in this room tonight, would be sitting in prison pending your appeal. People are sitting in prison right now pending their appeals, and Baca is a piece of garbage. And I'm really sick and tired of prosecutors and the powers that be pandering to these filthy criminals. And I'm so happy that Lee Baca is going to prison because he deserves it. I hope he's bunkies with Paul Tanaka. I hope they have a great time together in there. Also, the president gave State of the Union tonight. I actually came to City Council and put it on the DVR so I could watch it later. Tomorrow, the president's going to be acquitted. All politics are local, folks. You may not like the president, but he's our president. And I saw a bunch of Democrats acting like petulant children tonight during the State of the Union. The Speaker of the House dramatically tore up the president's speech. And we're in a bad way in this country, and I hope that West Covina can move forward. The city's very divided, just like the country, and I see a lot of things that shouldn't be that are. I really hope that you don't vote to rename Glendora Avenue. It's part of our history here in West Covina, one of the oldest streets. The Maxons definitely, like I said, they have a place in West Covina history, and maybe I like what I believe Jerry Potter said. Let's name something else. Maybe the council chamber, I like that idea. But we have to move past partisan politics, and we have to protect our voting.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Mr. Bennett.
Good evening, council, staff, audience. I'm here basically to voice my opposition to the name change, and it's nothing personal. I think you've heard that from several people about Mr. Maxon and his history with the city of West Covina. It's always nice to honor someone who is there, and being the first mayor of West Covina is definitely something to honor. So I in no means have anything against the Maxons. But you've heard from a few people tonight, and I had the same argument when I first read it. You have a ton of businesses on that street, and Mr. Wu, you're pro-business and you're a businessman. Imagine changing all of your letterhead documents, paperwork. Some of those businesses may not be as a little affluent as maybe you are, but it costs. It's very expensive. I know, Dario, you have a business as well, and so those are very poignant things to think about. I mean, business cards, they may be cheaper than they used to be, but they're expensive. And add up stationery and checks and just go down the list, and there's a ton of stuff. And anyone who's pro-business, I just can't imagine would consider naming that street or changing the name. The interesting thing about this whole thing is then you go into the city aspect. You have street signs, and you have the city's aspect of stuff, maps, and reporting to the government agencies of all the things that have to produce these things. There's costs involved there. And as you guys know, we're already dealing with issues where you guys are having trouble approving certain things because the budget's so tight. That's why we have unions trying to put a sales tax on the ballot. I think it's going to be the magic fix, which I don't agree with. But the scenario that you're dealing with is, you have two people tonight that actually came up with ideas that I didn't even think about, all of them. Ms. Patras had a great idea. I love the idea of the council chambers. He was the first mayor. How symbolic is that? That's pretty symbolic to name the council chambers of West Covina after the first mayor. I think that's probably the best answer, to be very honest with you. But then Shirley, I believe over here, I didn't think about streets that didn't have a business on it. Never thought about Lakes Drive. That's a great idea. So if you're really looking for a street, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that's a very valid point as well. Let's look at it with the least impact. I think it still impacts the city a little bit, at least in some ways, but I could live with that. I just want to say that, again, no disrespect to the Maxons. Respect everything about what he did for the city and being the first mayor, but we as a city got to look at a lot of things, and I think changing a fairly major street is good. One last thing, somebody mentioned Old Town Glendora. I actually like the words historic downtown West Covina better. I think that has a little nice tone to it when you have the historical society on the same street. But that's just me. I would use historic downtown West Covina or historic Old Town West Covina. I wouldn't, you take the historic out of it because I think that's pretty impressive. But anyways, thank you guys. Appreciate the time. Have a good night.
Thank you, Steve. Next, please.
That was our last speaker, but we do have one comment in opposition that needs to be read into the record. As follows, it says, Dear Assistant and City Manager, I understand Mayor Wu is proposing a change of the name of Glendora Ave to Maxon to recognize our first city mayor. Please inform the City Council that I am strongly against this name change. Glendora Avenue extends well into La Puente, where the Glendora Ave Hacienda Boulevard split occurs. There are hundreds of addresses that will be impacted by this change, along with great confusion. On the reach from I-10 to West Covina Parkway is blessed with over 30 property owners and over 60 businesses that will be negatively impacted with an address change, along with over 400 units at the colony who enjoy a Glendora Avenue address. I have had a business on Glendora Avenue for over 10 years and request not to rebrand my long-standing address. All of this is second to the historical precedence of the street. If the city really wants to engage in recognition of our first mayor, I suggest it consult with the Historical Society to make recommendations of an appropriate street that will have minimum impact. For example, Lakes Drive would impact few and could allow a rebranding of the commercial area that is in great need of proper branding. Please do not pursue the proposed approach.
Thank you. Any audience? You have a name?
My apologies. That was from Drexel L. Smith.
Okay, thank you. Any other audience want to address to council? If not, I'm going to close the oral communication. And City Manager, do you have anything to address?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have a brief report for you this evening.
No. I'm talking about, response about the audience. Not yet. No, I'm not going to go to your manager report yet.
Okay, thank you. No, we were taking careful notes, but I don't think I have anything.
Okay, really quick, this is just a Mother May I, so meaning what? Okay, I understand some of people worry about the change. We will review it, and if our council later on, the item number 8, agree to look into it. Again, if you look into the Country Club Center for 90 years, and the business is horrible, and you change to McIntyre Square. This is not only for the Maxon family, the Maxon Avenue. This also to try to revitalize our downtown. This is what it's about. So anyway, agree or disagree, we all go through it. I quite have no problem, but this is what we're trying to do to make this area, again, have more people to come, and hopefully it will be our downtown. So anyway, we move into next agenda. Okay, that would be the manager report. So this agenda basically is new. We want have people, okay, to understand what's going on in the city, transparency. So we want the city manager accountability and responsibility to tell us all the information we come from our city manager about, okay, what the new business open, okay, grand opening, or what kind of development, or what kind of new sign, this and that. So we will have all the right information from our city manager. So go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I apologize. I jumped the microphone, started a little too quickly. I did want to highlight a couple of items that I believe are of interest to the council and the community. First, regarding some of the city's homeless initiatives, I think we all know that you have the poor with you always, and whenever you wish, you may do them good. But I wanted to focus some ways in which we've highlighted this issue here at City Hall. I've appointed a task force comprised of some key city staff members from the police department, the code enforcement, the community development, and city manager's office. We're taking a team approach to trying to address these issues with the homeless much more aggressively. There was a plan to prevent and combat homelessness that was approved by the council back in July of 2018. It was a very sound document, and we're moving forward with a number of the initiatives within it. The city was granted some $343,000 for a regional cities homeless plan. The implementation of that plan is moving forward together with our partner cities, Covina, Azusa, Duarte, and Glendora. I wanted to mention, just as a tool, I think the council's aware, but I wanted the public to know that we've assembled a list of resources, and it's in use now, quite active use among our police department. There's a community resources brochure. If anyone's interested, we've got a couple dozen copies on the table in the back. The homeless initiative plan now has a full-time staff as of, well, 3 weeks from now, February 24th. We'll have a staff member at an office here in City Hall to directly help the homeless people access resources. And we think that's going to be a key to making more gain on this issue. I wanted to make mention of the fact that we've been tracking, and in January had a couple dozen new businesses open in West Covina. And we are very appreciative for some of the good work that's going on with our economic development partner, and we're welcoming those new businesses, each and every one, directly and personally as they open their doors. And then finally, just wanted to make mention, we've had a lot of community questions about what's happening with Chick-fil-A. 9 a.m. on February 13th, they're going to have a ribbon cutting and a grand opening, and I understand they've got something quite special planned for the first 100 people in line. So if you're a lover of that food, and I think we all are, I would encourage you to be there for that event on the 13th. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Okay, and now we are going to the consent calendar, the NE City Council. Are you going to pull the number 2, or are you going to state the number 2? Okay, over here. Are you going to put number 2 regarding the Weldon and the Transtech?
I'm prepared to give a report on that tonight, but I would ask you to act on it this evening.
So you can stay. Okay. So,
yes, please.
So basically, okay, we have a consent calendar. City Council, any item you want to pull? Nope. So do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so I have Councilman Johnson make the motion, okay, move the motion, and I have a Councilman Casiano, okay, and second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Castellanos?
Aye.
Councilman Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
Aye, but no on 2.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez Viado?
Aye.
Mayor Wu?
Aye, so we passed 5-0 beside the item number 2 with 4-1. Okay, now we go to the item number 5, the public hearing. Okay, the matters set for the public hearing are for an ordinance to eliminate accessory habitable structure in the R8 residential agricultural zone and R1 single-family house residential zone, and to codify vehicle backup space requirement by amending portion of Chapter 26 of the Municipal Code. Where the Deputy City Clerk verified that proper legal notice has been given?
Verified.
Very good. So at this time, I shall open the public hearing on this code amendment number 19-02. Okay, there will be the presentation, the staff report. Then we are going to have a comment from the public. So, Mr. Covina, City Manager, who is going to present this staff report?
Mayor, Director Anderson will present this report.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. This is Code Amendment 1902. The proposed code amendment consists of a revision to the zoning code to revise standards for residential agriculture and single-family residential zones, to consider eliminating standards for accessory habitable structures. The City Council initiated the code amendment on April 4th, 2019, after processing a code amendment for accessory dwelling units. Planning Commission held a study session on July 23rd, and then a public hearing on November 26, 2019. The proposal is exempt from the CEQA guidelines. So there are three kind of segments to this that we're asked to review, and so it's rear setbacks, accessory habitable quarters, and vehicular backup space. The third one actually came from staff during the Planning Commission discussions. So the first one we'll talk about was rear setbacks, and that was the one that really kind of was the reason to initiate the code amendment to begin with. The city currently requires a 25-foot rear setback for 1- and 2-story structures in residential settings, single-family residential settings. The code does allow an exception for 1-story structures that encroach no more than 40% into the rear yard and have a minimum 5-foot setback. And there's not going to be a test on that, so you don't have to write all that down. But there is an exception, and it is used quite frequently. The Planning Commission initially directed staff to increase the minimum setback to 15 feet. For most lots in the city, it is not likely that a room addition would be constructed as close as 5 feet because it's a long way generally from the house to the rear setback in most lots. And in addition, that close to the rear property line can impact the neighboring rear yard, especially privacy. But as you're aware, based on legislative acts approved by the state last year, basically around accessory dwelling units, they kind of removed the city's ability to establish rear yard setbacks in the case of accessory dwelling units. And now they can be allowed as close as 4 feet. So based on the changes required by the state, staff recommended to the Planning Commission to not include that standard, and they followed suit and removed that standard. If we did put the standard in, it really would only affect additions. It wouldn't affect ADUs So accessory habitable quarters, which we sometimes refer to as AHQs, which historically were known as guest houses. Historically, guest houses were a simple process. They were allowed by right. They didn't require any notification, any review. They could just be approved, as they say, over the counter. And second units were more complicated. They required a conditional use permit, which was a full hearing before the Planning Commission. But basically, they allowed the same type of thing. So but over the last 10 years, the state has required cities to amend the codes to relax standards on ADUs, but they didn't really take any stance on guest houses. Guest houses were separate rooms that did not have kitchens. They weren't looked at as a separate unit. They were looked at as an extension of the house. Today, ADUs are required to be allowed by right, and AHQs require the approval of an AUP, and they are also required to have a garage. Based on the number of submittals that we've had over the past few years, so in 2018 we had 15 proposals for ADUs, and in 2019 we had 23 proposals. In 2020 so far this year we've had 6. So the number of ADUs proposals is obviously going up. We have had no requests for AHQs in the last 2 years plus the month or so of this year. So it's been some time someone has proposed that. So the discussion was maybe we should get rid of the AHQs, and one thing to consider there is even if someone builds an AHQ now, the way the state law works, you can convert it to an ADU basically the day after you get it signed off. So the draft code amendment incorporates the deletion of the standards for AHQs. The definition and references have been left in the code as there are many guest houses that are constructed in the city, and they continue to have covenants on those properties going back probably as long as 30 years. So we wanted to keep the definition in there so that future staff will know what those were and what they meant, what they were meant to provide the information for in those covenants. Vehicular backup space. So the code currently requires a 22-foot backup space for garages that are in the side yard, but there is no backup space for other places where garages are. So It has been something that staff has established a policy for, and we think it's a good time to put it in the code with this code amendment. It would establish a minimum 22-foot length for driveways to other. I'm sorry, from a backup space from the garage to another building. I have a graph. To me, it's so simple because I deal with it every day. It's one of those things, if you deal with it every day, you know what it is. But if you don't, you don't. So let me show you with a graph that may help you understand that. So if you have a garage in the back of a lot, and you have a house in front of it, a lot of times that driveway is only 12 feet in width. So the house is in front of the garage. It blocks access to the garage. And people sometimes come in and ask to do an addition in this area, in effect, blocking access to the garage. So we're suggesting that there should be a 22-foot minimum dimension before you can build an addition to make sure you allow access to the garage. And this has been a policy the staff has been using for the past 15 years. Again, we just wanted to try to get it in the code. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Okay, so Mrs. Deputy City Clerk, have you received any comment concerning the code amendment number 19-02?
No comments have been received.
Okay, then in that way, Council, have you any question? And then I'm going to open the public comment. Any people want to address this issue? No? Very quiet? Are you sure? Okay, then I'm going to close the public comment, bring back the City Council to discussion. Any comment, any discussion you want to talk about? Nope. I like the recommendation. You like the recommendation. Very good. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
So do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have, let me have our Deputy City Clerk to read the title first. And then we have Councilman Casiano made the motion, and I have Mayor Pro Tem Lopez Viado second, and then after that you can have a roll call, please.
The ordinance in question is ordinance number 2469, an ordinance to amend zoning regulations applicable to single-family and residential agricultural zones regarding accessory habitable quarters, formerly known as guest houses, and vehicular backup space. And moving on to the roll call, Councilman Castellanos?
Aye.
Councilman Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez Viado?
Aye.
Mayor Wu?
Aye, and approve 5-0. Then we moving to the number 6, consideration of a resolution authorizing the issuance of a delivery of a pension obligation bond, more like a bond refinance. Who's going to provide this report? Okay, City Manager,
Good
go
evening,
ahead.
Mayor. I plan to do that one tonight, but I have an entire team of people here to answer questions at the end when we get there. I'll provide a brief report as we begin. West Covina, like a number of agencies in California, has been addressing the elephant in the room, which is the unfunded pension liabilities. CalPERS is the defined benefit pension program that a number of agencies use. Currently, there's more than 2,800 member agencies that are served by CalPERS for their employee retirement program. Right now, there are a number of agencies, including West Covina, that are dealing with unfunded liabilities, which are the result of a variety of reasons. CalPERS has lowered its discount rate, and CalPERS suffered significant investment losses, especially in the Great Recession of 2008. Also, a number of agencies have offered benefits which are now proving to be quite expensive, and the payments are increasing annually. In the city's most recent actuarial study, the funded ratio is 64.8% for its safety and miscellaneous plans. And as of 6/30/2020, the city is expected to have a total unfunded liability of approximately $200 million. Without pension obligation bonds, CalPERS projects that the future required payments toward this unfunded liability, there's a payment made every year, will increase by from $8.7 million to $12.3 million to a peak of more than $21 million annually in fiscal year 2031. With a general fund budget of some $66 million, we can see that that's not going to be workable. what are pension obligation bonds? It's a bond, a taxable bond issued by a municipality from which the proceeds are used directly toward this accrued unfunded liability of its pension system. The bond proceeds are typically deposited right into the system. In the city's case, the money would go directly to CalPERS and are managed in a similar fashion to existing investments. Unlike most municipal bonds, interest payments on pension obligation bonds are generally taxable, and we're expecting that this will be a taxable issue. The city, in its budget, identified a number of initiatives trying to find economies and efficiencies in its operations. Tonight, the council acted on a couple of those, the privatization of building and safety, the privatization of city engineering, and this was one of the initiatives that was identified in the budget. The city is working to align its projected revenues and projected expenditures and to adopt best management practices in this area. One of the goals for the pension obligation bond would be to change the payment pattern, to smooth it out versus an irregular pattern, which is what we're now dealing with no bonds. A predictable payment pattern would make budgeting much easier. We're also, as one of the goals, expecting to leave the tenor of the debt unchanged, would leave the amortization period as it is, and then we want to increase the funded level of the pension plan from its current 64.8% to north of 90%. And we've crafted what we believe to be one of the goals is to establish a long-term legally sound plan that will be well suited to the city's needs. I want to talk briefly about the action the council is being asked to take tonight, which is really the first step down this road, which is to go forward with the validation action. In effect, the city would sue itself in court and have the court stamp or certify that the actions the council has taken are in accord with all state laws. So the city council would approve a resolution, a complaint would be filed in Superior Court, the court would order notices so any affected parties would be aware of it through constructive notice by publishing in a local paper. There'd be a deadline for those responses, and ultimately a judgment would be issued. Once that appeal period were to expire, the bonds would be issued. One of the main reasons for doing this is that once that final validation judgment is entered by the court, investors would have the certainty, the assurance that the pension obligation bonds are legal, valid, and binding without other voter approval. I wanted to show an example. If the city were to issue $157 million, $158 million worth of these bonds, it would result in a funded ratio of 92.5% at a 7% discount rate. The savings would be significant. In most of the coming years, the savings would be in the range of $2.3 to $7.3 million. Right now, we're paying CalPERS at 7%. The municipal bond market is in the range of 4%. I want to make mention, we've talked about this issue 2 or 3 times now with the Finance and Audit Committee, and we shared with them. I want to make sure that the public and the council is aware that the Government Finance Officers Association has issued a paper and has expressed these concerns regarding pension obligation bonds. I would note that only one of them applies to this transaction. Number of cities have used this tool. In my career, I've done this exactly once, so it's not the kind of thing that occurs often. But since 1986, in this state, there's been about $28 billion worth of these bonds issued in California from more than 80 issuers, and local pension bonds have been issued by the cities, nearby cities of Glendora, Laverne, Monrovia, by the city of Riverside, and by the city of Baldwin Park. And since 2012, all of these transactions have been sold as fixed-rate bonds. There's a timeline in your packet which has us proceeding through the validation process, making some decisions about the structure of the bonds, and by being to market by June of this year. We have an entire team here. We went through an RFP process to select this team, from the underwriter to the municipal advisors to the bond counsel. All of those offices are represented in chambers tonight and are available to answer any questions you might have. It's our recommendation that you authorize the issuance and deliver of these bonds by adopting Resolution 2020-08. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. Council, any question? No question? Okay, I have a question for you. Okay, I think it's a good idea to refinance, lower our interest rate. Currently, we're paying, what, 7-8% interest rate?
Yes, sir, 7%.
Okay, 7%. So after and how much totally? $250 million?
Well, we haven't quite decided on the size. We think at the confidence level we're seeking, it'll be about $158 million against a total outstanding unfunded liability of right at
so we're
$200 million.
We're going to refi, lower the interest rate so we can save how much the interest rate we can save. Okay, what is the new interest rate we're going to get?
I'm going to invite our underwriter to come up and talk to that, but the overall, there's different rates and different maturities within these bonds as they're structured, but we're looking at lowering the interest rate from about 7 to about 4%. So, okay, I'm going to invite Brian Whitworth to address that question.
Which company you represent?
I'm Brian Whitworth with Hilltop Securities.
This is Todd Smith with Hilltop Securities as well, so we're the underwriter.
Okay, go ahead.
So, currently, market rates are extremely low. As of last week, I want to say, interest rates have been about their lowest as in history. Within, I think, the forward swap group, within about 15 basis points. So, in today's market, I think even the last set of cash flows that we ran were dated as of January 30th. We updated them today, and the average borrowing cost, again, which is going to be below 4%, has gone down even lower. If we price the bonds today, just the additional savings from the 30th to today is another $2.5 million. On a present value basis, it's about, what, 45?
44
change.
Yeah.
So.
Really quick, I in the mortgage business, so I know exactly the interest rate. So I want to have the best rate we can get due to the interest rate really dropping so much recently. Okay, the market rate right now, I think even below 3.5%. The mortgage rate right now is about 3.25%. So we should have a much better interest rate. And by the way, what is the terms? It's a 30-year term, 20-year term? Interest, okay.
24 is our expected. And when we looked at the overall average rate, including various fees, cost of issuance, it was 3.61 as of this morning. And that is off, including at the city's current rating of A+, and we think there's a pretty substantial chance of being upgraded to AA-, which would generate $2 to $3 million of additional savings.
Right. Reduce that borrowing cost by another 10 basis
points. So if today possible 3.61 interest rate, and it's including principal, or this is just interest only?
In your business, it's the equivalent of the APR.
Oh,
so
APR.
All of the fees.
So all together, so including the closing costs. So how much the closing costs? Is all the fee we have to pay?
In the staff report, there's an estimate of the closing cost, and it's a separate schedule. Here we go.
953. So the closing. So the closing cost $953,100,000, and that including the amount finance. Because you said talking about APR.
Yes, that's the
that's
blended
part of the
right.
The all-in cost.
With the interest rate that we're quoting is a blended rate, which includes all of your cost of
closing cost $953,000. The closing cost.
Yeah, and exactly so. And in today's market, it would be a
3.61 interest rate. Is that closing cost negotiable? Because it sounds like kind of high, right? For $953,000 for the closing costs.
There are a number of things in there. There are the underwriting fees, legal fees. This is more complicated than your usual bond issuance. You have to go to validation. There's the fee for the financial advisor.
Understand?
Rating
okay.
fees.
City managers, okay, have you RP shop around? Did the best company we can find?
Yes, sir. We did shop, and we negotiated the rate we initially got down.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so again, okay, it's very important for us to get a market current low interest rate and fair closing costs that other city paying, and in that way we should have a big saving. Other question from council? Okay, go ahead, Casiano.
Just two questions, guys. I know we've talked about this before, but how are the cities that have done this that were mentioned in the report, how are they faring? Second question, is there anything that would make it to where we don't achieve these results?
It is possible that you don't achieve the results because CalPERS would be investing the POB proceeds the same as the money that's already there. Whatever return you get, whether it's 14% a year or 2 or -5, it's the same on all of the assets. When we were at committee, we showed some historic numbers, and currently at least, but this is not always the case, when you look backwards, all of the CalPERS returns to date over any period you might come up with were higher than the expected borrowing cost. And looking forward, the lowest estimate of the expected returns from the most pessimistic of the investment advisors is 5.29%. So it's not a guarantee by any means, but the further apart you get the borrowing cost and the expected rate of return, the higher the likelihood is that your invested proceeds will have a higher return than your cost of borrowing. And you're right at historic low interest rates now, and hopefully that holds until June or thereabouts when you issue.
Possible to get even lower. Possible. Based on the
We've heard this from our desk assorted times where we would hear rates have never been lower, and then a week or two later, rates have never been lower. And for you all, of course, it's market interest rates, and we think there's a pretty reasonable chance you'll be upgraded on your next trip to S&P because there will be a lot of good changes in the city.
And so to that point about being upgraded, how quickly can we capitalize on that in terms of interest rate reduction? And so to translate your comments, basically that means because interest rates are low and the stock market's good, low chance of failure, correct?
Yes, and this is a long-term perspective here, 20, 25-year time horizon. So I would be quite surprised if CalPERS got more than, say, 3.5% or 4% every single year for 20 years. But on average, they should very likely be over the cost of borrowing.
Okay, and about the upgrade by S&P, how quickly could we capitalize on that? Or how could we?
It would affect this borrowing because that's the next rating we're going for.
Right, so we'll go to S&P, and again, we think with a well-structured pension obligation bond and plan presented appropriately to S&P, that we think we can make an argument for that higher rating, and which will translate into a lower borrowing cost.
Yes, please do very aggressively. And also the question about other cities who've done this, how have they fared?
There's a Boston College study on this that was done in 2014, which was the most extensive one. The results would be better now because market returns for the great majority of retirement systems between 2014 and 2020 have been quite good. So as they noted, if you do such a study at the very bottom, like early 2009, you will get different results than after a long expansion. But the great majority of pension bonds that have been issued, they did have positive returns. Another thing to note is when you look at the history prior to about 2009, the borrowing costs were typically a lot higher than now. A lot of them were issued at 6.5%. And now the typical range is a little over 3 to a little over 4. And so, that's a huge differential. And on the Boston College study, the typical spread, and most of this was higher interest rate times, was 150 basis points. You got 150 basis points long-term on average higher on the invested assets than your borrowing cost.
We're at 300 basis points now in spread.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we're a little lucky, this might be a 350 borrowing.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Okay, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Is there another way to do this? Because my concern is we put bonds out for $158 million. We give them to CalPERS, which quite frankly sucks at investing. And we, get a bill 10 years from now that they're not making their investment dividends, and now they need even more from us. So is there some other way where we don't necessarily give it to them? I know a local college district who actually created an irrevocable trust that they've put millions of dollars into and keep adding to it and then pay that way. Because my concern is, one, this is basically just lengthening the time that we're making the payments and making it more manageable over the long term because there's less of an up and then down. But two, we don't know what PERS is going to do. They're constantly talking about divesting from different investments, usually the ones that actually make money in our economy. And so how do we insulate ourselves? How do we protect ourselves from CalPERS' bad decisions?
Historically, and this is probably the case in the future, you don't have any choice as to what CalPERS invest in for your particular account. This is likely to continue. So when you look at all the variety of CalPERS members around the state, some of them actually have enough money to make large cash contributions. Not a ton of them, but some of them do and can just, they send an extra $1 million or $5 million a year and they have it. There are other people who could, size their pension bonds differently. And of course, there have been a number of changes where there were different arrangements as to how much employees paid. And historically, there were different tiers created. After PEPRA, it's not common at all to have a new tier. But differences in how much the employees pay in normal cost is something we see with some frequency. But the city is in the typical situation that most of what it's paying is towards unfunded liability.
Well, yeah,
not the ongoing.
And I understand that. And I understand that yearly we get a bill from PERS that says this is what you pay.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between saying here's $158 million and cross our fingers and toes that they don't do something that causes the fund to go from super funded to 60% again. Whereas that's why I'm asking, is there some other way where we hold funds and we could still make the yearly payments as needed, but maybe we get better returns than we would under PERS once it's in their system?
There are some places that have something called a pension stabilization trust, where money can go somewhere aside from CalPERS and be invested differently. It's quite rare to do a pension bond to put money in there, so usually those are funded out of ongoing cash. And, there are a decent number of those, but it's kind of like the people who make discretionary contributions to CalPERS. They have enough money to do it. Those have to be pretty substantial to counteract a big investment downturn. They are usually targeted to help cover year-to-year changes in revenues or increases in CalPERS contributions. Otherwise, they've got to be pretty big.
Just have a quick question and I'm done. Okay, the first question is we don't have a prepayment penalty, right? Prepayment penalty?
No.
So we can pay down the principal we owe, right?
Right. It
So
likely be a 10-year call provision is I think what we've been discussing so far. Yeah. But still have the flexibility to.
So we are flexible to pay down the money we liable.
So.
And the second question, okay, I'm going to give 3 questions. The second question is, if we decide to do this, okay, we low in the interest rate below like 3.5, 3.41, something like that, okay, and how soon we can get this refinanced so we can have the saving? Currently, we're paying 7%, and then of course we need to try to find the low interest rate. Okay, otherwise pay this high interest rate doesn't make any sense for the city budget. Okay, and then how long it take, okay, to get this thing done?
As soon as it depends on the exact details.
And then number 3 question would be how much saving we're going to have if we decide to
We've got
do
the year
this.
by year saving chart here. So you would start saving money in fiscal year ending 21, and CalPERS calculates the interest they charge you to the day. So if you can get your transaction done a few days earlier, you save more money. They discount it at 7%, and if you close on June 1, it's higher savings than if you close on June 15. So the estimated savings that we've got when we did this in January was $2.4 million in the first year's budget, and there is some ability to move this around.
The interest saving?
Yes.
$2.4 million.
Yeah.
But it's based on what interest rate?
That was off the 3.81.
So if we go to 3.4, it's possible we're going to save almost $3 million.
Yeah. When we did it off the numbers that we got for interest rates this morning, it was about $160,000 more. So it's like being able to pay an additional firefighter. And similar numbers in each of the subsequent years, getting slightly larger each year. So the savings start the first year, and like I say, the earlier you can do the transaction, you get slightly larger savings.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Any other question? No? Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate. And if there are no questions, do we have a motion to approve this refinance?
I make a motion.
Okay, I have Councilman Johnson make a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Councilman Casiano, second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Castellanos?
Aye.
Councilman Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
No, and it's not a refinance.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez Viado?
Aye.
Mayor Wu?
Aye, and approve 4-1. Now we're moving to number 7, consideration of a historic contest statement and and a historic resource inventory update. And Mr. Carmody, our city manager, who will present this staff report.
Mayor and Council, this will be introduced by Director Anderson.
Yes, thank you. So this is our historic resources inventory. We did this once before in 2006, and this is an update. We hired a firm called GPA Consulting, and we have Allison Lyons here, who's going to be doing the presentation tonight. And so at the end of that, there'll be a chance to talk and have some questions. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Allison to give the presentation.
Thank you. I'm Allison Lyons. I'm an architectural historian with GPA Consulting, and it's been our pleasure over the last year and a half to work with the City of West Covina on an update to the historic resources inventory for the city, and also to write a historic context statement for the city addressing the period of 1945 to 1978. Tonight, I'll just do a very brief overview of our project and some of the documents that have come out of the project. So the main document that came out of our project is available online. It is divided into 4 sections, and it is primarily a tool for the planning department to help inform their decision making. It's also a tool for the public to learn about the history of the city and the resources in the city. It's divided into 4 main sections. The first is the criteria for evaluation, and that's at the national, state, and local levels. The second section is the sort of fun narrative historic context statement for the city, which is a really broad overview. And that is followed by a section that has themes, associated property types, and registration requirements. So that section would help clarify what a building, a structure, an object would need to be in order to reflect the history of West Covina and then possibly be a significant historical resource in the community. The final section includes our conclusions and recommendations, and that is the very long section. So we've divided that up into a number of appendices and attachments. Ultimately, this whole project was to address a simple question, which is what are the historical resources in the city of West Covina? And we used 2 methods primarily to answer that question. The first was informed by field work, which included a full survey of the city, and the second was follow-up research, where we were able to work with the Historical Society and a number of other groups in the city to evaluate the buildings and structures that we identified during our field work. As a first step for our fieldwork, we looked at the update, which were the properties that had been previously identified in 2006. These properties were divided into roughly 3 categories: those that had been identified as eligible at the national, state, and local levels, properties that were eligible only at the local level, and then finally a historic district that encompassed the Sunkist Village development. The second part of our survey looked at all of the properties in West Covina that were constructed between 1945 and 1978, which is most of the city, almost over 90% of the city. So this was the first time most of these properties had been evaluated and looked at for possible historical significance. Some of the more interesting findings that we had were some great examples of mid-century modern architecture, such as this church on Cameron Avenue. We documented all of our findings on DPR forms, which is a California state form that includes an evaluation of each property that we looked at. There are maps and photographs and sources cited on all of those forms for each property that we evaluated. The first section of our package of DPR forms is the HRI update. So that's looking at all of the properties that were previously looked at and identified in 2006. The second section includes the new evaluations for properties that were constructed between 1945 and 1978. We did not identify as many properties from 1945 to 1978 as we had anticipated identifying for a city of West Covina's size. That finding was informed by a lot of research, and we wanted to make sure that the city had the research that we had completed should future efforts want to look at those properties again. And so the final section of our document includes a very detailed list of all of the post-war builders and developers who worked in West Covina. There were a number of really remarkable and well-known mid-century modern architects who worked on housing developments in the city of West Covina. So in the future, if somebody wanted to research these properties, there is a resource in our document for them to come to. The part that's pictured on the screen here is the glossary of preservation terminology. Sometimes we can get a little jargony, so we included a glossary that is illustrated with things such as a butterfly roof, which is what Peter's El Loco has. And then finally, the City of West Covina Code of Ordinances is included in there, so property owners who are interested in what makes a historical resource in the city can turn to the final pages of the document and get the official definitions. So that's our brief overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the document and our work.
Thank you so much. Council, any question? No question? Just a concern, okay? When you identify a historical building to a private property owner, so what is their property right? Okay, when we identify, say, when they want to do remodeling, or they want to tear down, or they want to do something look like they'll be restricted. So how many houses, okay, that have been identified by you, okay, and then that their possible property right has been possible damage. So how can we tell those homeowners that you have been identified? Have we notified them yet or something? Can they appear, say, hey, my house is like no insulation, the roof is horrible, I want to do a repair, and they said no because this is historical building, then we might have an issue over there. So can you address that?
Well, I'll start by saying that identification as eligible is not designated. So we're just making a recommendation. And then it is, I'll turn it over to Jeff to talk about the city's process when a property owner of an identified property comes forward with an application for work.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so I want to kind of make this analogy that it's sort of like if you have a broken arm and you haven't gone to the doctor yet, you still have a broken arm. You go to the doctor, it's confirmed, but you still have the broken arm. So a historic structure is a historic structure. All we've done is define it as a historic structure. But if someone whenever we do a development process, we have to do California Environmental Quality Act, which means you have to review if it's a historic structure. And when that review, it would generally turn up the same findings. So all we're doing is it informs our review of that. And we've already used this once in showing that one of the properties that was proposed for development wasn't historic. So that we sent that to our CEQA consultant, and they already had the information, and now we have that. So if you think about it in that sense, we identified how many properties we didn't identify as eligible?
For GPA's work, it was roughly 20.
Oh, so,
yeah.
So we identified 20 properties how many did you review?
Well, over 20,000.
Okay, so
yeah.
20 out of 20,000. So that means I can't do the math that fast, but 20,000 minus 20, that means those ones are easy to handle now. If they want to tear those down, we don't have to go through processes. We've already got this document that tells us that they're not eligible. And then the second part, I may be confusing the situation, but I want you to understand that just because we don't know it's eligible doesn't mean it's not eligible. Just because you don't know something doesn't mean it's not factually. This is factual information. Secondarily, the second part of that is, and most people have heard all these horror stories from places like Pasadena, where actually they love it, but they still these horror stories about you can't tear this down. Well, that's because they have a code that says they can't tear it down. This is not a code. This is like an encyclopedia or a dictionary. It gives us something to work with, but our code doesn't.
So this is just a guideline?
It is just a guideline. The code doesn't tell you that you can't tear it down. That would be part of the CEQA review and the development proposal and the city's decision whether you as the council wanted to remove.
Understood. Okay. The concern I have, is just like when we have a lot of old homes in West Covina. It's basically 1923, and the people build houses. Okay, and once upon a time, I lived in the house like it's 1950. Okay, and the entire complex. 235 leave, there's all 1950 home. And I think those homes won't be historical property at all due to they are all kind of model home back in 1950. But how we tell the people buying the property potentially, like for example, our city manager purchased their home, like built in 1970, possible that you cannot do any remodeling. Okay, so how we want the people, and they purchase a house, that possible they will hit into our guideline. Okay, do they have any notification before they purchase? Again, they just want to. We don't want to restrict people's their property right.
So I'll try to reiterate again. This isn't a code. So all it does is inform the fact that it meets the objective criteria of eligible for a historic structure. Then it's up to the property owner to determine, do I want it to be a historic structure? And then they can propose a landmark. That comes before the Planning Commission. We've only done it once. I think it just goes to the Planning Commission. They determine it as a landmark. Once it becomes a landmark, now it's got some protection. But the property owner would have to, the way our code is set up, the property owner has to request that.
So basically it's come from the owner, not come from the city, put the identification, say this is a historical, you cannot touch, like San Marino or Pasadena, they have some issue, and people cannot do even anything, cannot even do any small tiny remodeling. Very good. And any other council, any question, comment? It's none. Okay, do you have a motion to receive and file?
Make a motion, receive and file.
Second.
Okay, so I have Councilman Johnson to move the motion, and I have Councilman Casiano to second, and we are all agree, so 5-0 approved. We're moving next one. That will be, number 8. Okay, I think this is mine. Okay, again, this is a Mother May I. Okay, it's meaning have our city to look into the potential, and see the business around there. They have this change of name. Again, we want to have a vital downtown. We hope we can have people to go over there. And we try everything, and right now it's still, not really have a lot of traffic. For example, we have country club center. That's about 95 years, and it's kind of depressing. And so the first thing, the developer want to do is change the name and see, hopefully, that can totally become get attraction, get promotion, get some kind of branding. So become a McIntyre Square, and now it's one of the most beautiful square in West Covina. We're thinking about the same thing, not only to, and honor our first mayor. You just use the first mayor is our story. We have a story to tell. 1923, the city have this mayor, and he make this city so great today. Okay, and then we have a story, then we have what? We have a street, and we want to improve the business over there. We're not trying to burden them. We want to improve. They have more people come to our street. We want to revitalize our downtown. We want our downtown in West Covina and right now we say, hey, we're going to downtown, you're going to Glendora. People go to the city of Glendora. Okay, so that is some issue. Okay, that what we try to do is, can we, and again, this is just a Mother May I. So let's look into it, see how much it costs, how the business is thinking about pro and con, and then bring back, see that it's feasible or not. Again, is how we can improve our downtown area and to make people to really enjoy it, to really attract people to come. Especially right now, we even have a museum over there, and they have the statue of our first mayor, and maybe you can attract more people and go shop over there, attract business coming in. So this is just a Mother May I to look into it, and that's why I want to make a motion to let our city staff to look into it and see how the business and pro and con. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any comment? Okay, Councilman Johnson.
Just explain my second. I like the discussion that was had today about all the pros and cons of considering this. So, like city staff and the community to consider them all and to, find the best way to honor our first mayor as well as keep everyone's interests in mind. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I for one just on the opposite side. I think our first mayor, what an honor it is to have his name there. I prefer to see in the city council. Another place, something to do it. I know we did this a few years ago when we were doing it downtown. Right. We had a big thing. Do we want to rename Glendora Boulevard? Overwhelmingly, they said no. They did not want to change the name of it. That because the business and stuff, because of that reason. So I think yes, there should be a way we should be able to honor him. As being a former mayor, I think it's fantastic that he is the first mayor that we can all look up to, saying this was the guy that we all go by. So I think we should do something. We've had some great suggestions tonight. So I don't mind it moving forward so we can talk about it as a Mother May I. But I think, would you mind if they brought back some other ideas too, or do you just want that one idea?
Again, it's all okay to bring all the different kind of idea, but I hope you understand this is to revitalize our downtown. Okay, it's not just to change the. Would you mind, please? Okay, let me finish and then you can come in. Okay, so basically is how we can improve and to get more attraction and branding. So this is about, I'm open, I think all the council open to how to improve our community in that area, and people continue to talk about that has been kind of underdeveloped, and the people over there don't even fix up their property. So we try to see what we can do, just like McIntyre Square. Look at how vibrant currently is. One of the pride of our city shopping mall, and hopefully we can have this street become branding. And to have the first mayor is, again, I say it's a story. So people will say, oh, whoa, this is first mayor of West Coast. Let's go to take a look. So track and branding and plus a lot of event over there. I think we can help this downtown. Okay, and maybe some very good restaurant continue coming in. Plus, the more important thing is the colony, they need to lease out all those property. 25,000 still vacant. Hopefully, we can have them, encourage them to do the improvement. So all this about, we are going to look into it and open up for all different kind of suggestions. And hopefully, but again, it's to help the business over there and help to revitalize our downtown. Any other, go ahead.
I'm, I guess, on the opposite side because when you compare it to McIntyre Square is McIntyre Square. It's a shopping center. It's not a street. And Glendora Avenue isn't just the part by Edwards Theaters and the shopping center there. It goes further down. It goes into other cities. It goes into other communities. So there would have to be a discussion. Are we just the little part right here? Are we going to continue it across West Covina Parkway? What part becomes Maxon Avenue? And I kind of find this to be backwards. My first question when we start doing things like this is how we did it in the school district. When we open new schools, the question was, what's the policy for naming? What can schools be named? Do we have a policy? The answer was yes. Well, does it need to be updated? Does this still matter? So the policy became, we will not name after people, and it will be more streets, things like that, but not named after people. So my question is, does the city have any ordinances on naming? We don't have an answer to that question. Why this street? Why not talk about, let's say, a portion of Orange in front of Hearst Ranch, which is another historic site in West Covina. I believe that the first mayor should be honored. I don't believe we need to do that by changing a street name that is 90 years old. No, Glendora has been since 1933. So I just think there's better ways to do it. I have no problem in having a Mother May I where we look at ways to honor him, because I think it's sorely needed. I mean, we do have the bust at the Historical Society. Maybe we talk to them about bringing it over here, and we do name council chambers, West Covina, Maxon council chambers, something like that. My other concern is the cost. A lot of times we have Mother May I's, or we see something in the community, so we ask for a traffic study, or we ask if this can be fixed, without any thought into the amount of staff time it's taking, the amount of consultant time it's taking, and everything else. And so before we start doing this, I think we need more of a discussion on the types of requests we make, the requests we're making to staff, how we're doing business on a day-to-day basis. I mean, the council majority just approved an amendment to a contract that went from $700,000 a year to $1.7 million a year. Because the $700,000 included CIP projects and the engineering services. There was no decrease in the engineering services, yet we added a new component for up to $1 million on CIP programs. So I just think we need to pump the brakes a little bit, find out where we are, explore what we can do without involving traffic studies, legal opinions, and things like that.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead.
If we bring it back for a discussion, are we going to send notices out to all the residents, 400 some residents at the colonies, all the business owners, and the people around there? Because if we're going to have a discussion, they have to be in on the discussion.
Yeah, of course. Okay. And again, Mother May I, is city looking to the potential chance to name our Glendora, change to Maxon Avenue. So that would be our downtown. So this is what Mother May I. Do I have? I will first. I will move the motion. I have a second. So roll call, please.
Councilman Castellanos.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson.
No.
Councilmember Shoemaker.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez Viado.
Aye.
Mayor Wu.
Aye. So pass 3-2. So we're going to have Mother May I to the city to look into potential to change our Glendora Avenue to the Maxon Avenue. Thank you so much. And other than that, do you have AB 1, 2, 3, 4? None. Do you have any other Mother May I? Do I have any other comment? Other than that, I want to thank our granddaughter from our first mayor, Maxon, Benjamin Maxon. Thank you so much for showing up. We tried not only to honor the first mayor, but also to try to see what we can help our downtown. But thank you for coming to join our meeting. Other than that, any motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
Then meeting adjourned. Thank you and good night.